Where do I start? Where do I begin? How do I stop? Where do I start? Where do I begin?
Thank you, Catherine. It's a huge honour to be here, and I'm honoured that you've come along yourselves today. As Catherine said, I have some stories to share with you. I think more of a story than I've ever shared before. So I'd invite you to notice whatever you notice, whatever it means to you, whatever shows up for you. Go with it. Accept it. In April, I was on Facebook, and a very powerful coach, someone who I really look to and think, wow, what a powerful man. He put a post on Facebook and he said, I've just got a call from somebody in Jack Canfield's leadership group. He'd like me to go to Africa with him and lead a group of coaches and teach teachers in schools, to go to Liberia. And I would love to have another coach come with me. And in that moment, what really showed up for me, truthfully, was, you bastard. I didn't get that call. Why is it always you? Why can't I be like you? And then I thought, he's got such a powerful group, and so many people responded saying, oh, Rich, it's great, it's amazing, I'll go. I thought, I really want to go. But you know what? It's all right, because other people have already said they're going to go. And he's only looking for one coach. And what happened was, about 4 or 5 days later, when I kind of let go of the idea, he sent me a message. He said, David, I want you to come with me to Liberia. Now it became real. I sent him a message back again and said, Rich, damn you, damn you, damn you, damn you, I hate you, love David. Because now I had to make a decision. It was a big investment, $10,000. I had time away from my family. At a time when I'm really starting a new phase of my business life. And I didn't know if I had the money, or the time, or the commitment. I said, Rich, I've really got to think about this. And damn you again anyway. And I thought about it, and I spoke to Truda, and 24 hours later, almost exactly, I'm on Facebook, and I think, I've got to tell Rich I can't go. So I go into Messenger, and I say, hey, Rich, I can't go. He said, David, I was just thinking about you. So I've got a question for you. One of the other group leaders has dropped out. I'd like to put your name forward. Would that be okay? Rich, I'm coming. Didn't think about it. I knew I was going. I had to go. And that's where this started. And we had 3 weeks. 4 weeks. Sorry, I told a lie. 4 weeks. Now, does anybody here know where Liberia is? Nope. No. Nearest one. Africa. Okay, it's in Africa. Well done. There are no prizes tonight here, I'm afraid. There are no prizes tonight, but Africa is good. West Africa, fantastic. So, by the way, here's context for going to Liberia. I go on Google. If you go on Google and you look at Liberia, it hasn't got great brand values. Cannibalism, civil war, rape, mutilation. And to add to all of that, the excitement is, at the beginning of April, an outbreak of Ebola virus. Do you know what Ebola virus is?
Yes.
Hemorrhagic fever. Chances of survival, 2 to 5%. If you touch someone with Ebola virus, the chances are you will die. And you will die in a very unpleasant way. Basically, your insides come outside through every orifice in your body. Your insides liquefy and they come out. Ebola virus was in Liberia. It's never been in Liberia before, so it was well timed for us thinking about going to Liberia. And yet, I knew I was going. And then you get a list of all the injections that you need to have. And I went to the travel clinic, and they said, well, you should have been here 3 or 4 weeks ago to get all these injections. I guess we'll have to skip them then. So I went to Liberia, not really knowing what to expect. Not really knowing why I was going. I was incredibly flattered to be invited as a group leader. And if I'm honest, that's why I said yes so quickly. Such a great man chose me. He has such an immensely powerful community, and he chose me. I even said to him, I don't care if I was the 99th person on your list. I was the one that you chose in that moment, and I'm saying yes. He said, David, you're the only one I chose. So I was flattered. And then the reality started to sink in. I needed to recruit 5 coaches to come with me. I needed to get a visa. I went to the Liberian embassy in London. Liberia is the 2nd poorest country on the planet. When you go to the embassy, it's like it was furnished from a jumble sale at the church hall in 1970. It's true. It's an incredibly poor nation. So that's why, and that's how I came to tell this story tonight. Let's have a little look at Liberia.
Where do I start? Where do I begin? How do I start?
Hi, my name is David Taylor. I live in York in the UK. I feel 2 very powerful things. Humbled. I'm so humbled that Liberian students speak with such a quiet voice, with immensely powerful ambition. And it's not the powerful ambition itself, it's why they want to do it. They want to heal their country. And I feel proud. I feel proud to be part of such an amazing group. I feel proud of them. And I'm thinking, how can we come back and make a bigger difference? How can we not just finish one school? How do we change how schooling works?
There's a little flavour of Liberia. And when I see that, it gives me such a powerful feeling inside some of the memories that I have. And what I'd like to do this evening is share 4 or 5 of those stories with you. And perhaps a little bit of what I learned. Perhaps so you might get some insight. I will be inviting you during the evening to have a piece of paper and a pen ready, because I will be asking you some questions about what emerges from those stories. I'm also going to ask you to keep your energy high. These are powerful stories. They're the most powerful stories I will ever tell. So before we start, I want to get us to get the same energy those little kids had. Is everybody up for that?
Yeah.
Ready with me? Oh, put your pens and paper down, everything down on the floor, everything down, it's going to go flying everywhere. Because you're going to leave in here. There'll be no sitting, I really meant it. 3, 2, 1. Yay! Thank you, thank you. So let's talk about Liberia. Go to Google. It's not a lot of fun reading. It is a small country. I did check, it's not the size of Wales, because everything's the size of Wales. It's actually about the size of England. In West Africa, you know, you go to the map, and it looks like a tiny speck in West Africa. It's the size of England. You then realize how big Africa is. It's huge. And Liberia is a population of about 4.1 million. It was probably half of that at the start of the Civil War, which was 15 years ago. Now, just to give a bit of context of Liberia. This is probably one of the finest beaches in West Africa. And this here, which is a relatively small area, is home to 80,000 people. The average house, shelter, whatever you want to call it, in that area is 10 foot by 10 foot. The average occupancy is 10. They now have the luxury of 22 toilets. Up until last year, there were 4. This is the only real sanitation facility they have. Bathing, toilet, everything. It's like a soup of cholera and typhoid and diphtheria. If you don't know about Liberia, it's had brutal civil wars. There were 2 civil wars that ended 9 years ago now, and they went on for about 10 years. I can't remember the exact number. A lot of the civil wars, there were warlords leading tribal groups fighting with each other. Many of those warlords now live in this place called West Point. When the Civil War was on, off this beach here, there were boats moored up. Strangely, Mexicans and Colombians. And they were peddling heroin off the shore, just there you go, exploiting the lawlessness in Liberia. Again, just a little flavor of the country, because it's such a different context to the one we live in. This number here, 75 per 1,000. If you haven't guessed already, that's the infant mortality rate. That's the rate that children die below the age of 5. For every 1,000 children, 75 children die. That's the average. The reality is, in the rural areas, it's probably 2 or 3 times the average. Because the water supply is, they just don't have clean water. It's as simple as that. $4.1 million people. There are 375,000 children who live without parents in Liberia. And they live in little orphanages like this. We found this one by accident. When I was flying there, a British Airways stewardess mentioned there was an orphanage just outside our hotel. And I walked out, and it was literally across the road. And there were 29 kids who stayed there because they didn't have parents to live with. During the day, it was also a primary school for about another 30 or so kids. When we arrived, and it was run by a lady called Martha and her sister and her daughter, and that was it. And it's a remarkably big building, but they had nothing in it. And when we arrived, they had just run out of food. And all they asked us for, we said, what can we get you? And they said, a sack of rice and some palm oil. So we bought them a month's worth of rice, palm oil, coconuts, bananas, nuts, because that's what we could get quickly. They were so humble. All they asked for was a bag of rice and some oil. And here's the challenge. I really want Martha's orphanage to be sustainable. And yet, since I've been back, trying to create a connection, create communication, find a way of getting
3 or 4 sacks of rice delivered every month is proving incredibly difficult. And this is for 30 people. There are 375,000 orphans. So the challenge is immense. You know, another 10,000 little buildings like this with no support, no infrastructure. I love this picture. We were driving along the road, and I'm sitting on the left-hand side of the minibus looking out the window, and someone was on the right-hand side. Look, and I literally held my camera at the window at arm's length and clicked, and that's what came out. The sadness is in this number. 75%. At least 75% of women in Liberia have been raped or suffered sexual violence. At least. It's got the worst statistics for child rape of anywhere in the world. And unlike most countries, these are usually crimes of war. And unlike most countries, it's actually got worse since the war ended. And no one really understands why. And these are the last numbers I'll share with you. 2 parts of this number. Between the start of the Civil War and the end of the Civil War, at least 50% of the schools were destroyed. At least 50%. I've seen numbers that the actual number of schools before the war started was 4,000, and after the war it was low as 250. But the official stats say 50%. But I think there might be a difference between the government stats and what's actually happening on the ground. And yet, remarkably, 50% of the population is under the age of 15. And this is where change comes. Change comes from education. And at the moment, the school system is in tatters. Even 10 years after the war ended, the school system is destroyed. Powerful numbers. And I'm curious. It raises a question for me about you. And you may not have an answer to this, and you might. What numbers are in your life that define you? Yeah. So I'd like to invite you to take a couple of minutes and just sit and think and maybe write some notes down. And think about, are there numbers in your life that define you?
Where do I start? Where do I begin? How do I stop? Where do I start? Where do I begin? How do I